A good way to start learning how to make your own pedals is to assemble a DIY kit. But the question which remains is, does it sound good? Let's find it out. What's up, fellow budget tone chasers? Welcome back to one more video here at the channel. Moving ahead with our series of DIY projects. Today, I'm bringing a really nice experience to share with you. But before we enter in this story, I need to thank the sponsors of today's video, which is the AliExpress. Thanks to the good folks of AliExpress, we selected the Landtone DIY Clone Kit to present to you today. Better than that, if you're also interested in getting the DIY kit or any other item at AliExpress, it was released 3 promo codes exclusive for the channel folks. So do not lose this opportunity to get your favorite items and save some extra bucks. All promo codes are valid until 31st October. Once again, thank you AliExpress. Now, let's talk about the star of our experiment, the Landtone DIY Clone Kit. If you already browsed the AliExpress looking for pedal DIY kits, and also spare parts, you probably know that the Landtone is the biggest player in the sector, offering really interesting kits for a reasonable price and high quality components. But the question which we would like to answer today is, does it sound good? There is no other way to discover that. Let's start assembling our DIY kit. The kit arrived in a really compact carton box, and when I unboxed it, I was shocked with how beautiful this enclosure looks. The sparkle golden case is gorgeous, and also super compact. A really interesting feature for those who wish to have a clone style pedal which resembles the original clone without losing lots of space at the pedal board. A positive point to Landtone already. The second positive point is that this specific model features a really nice manual, which is not always true for all Landtone kits, unfortunately. Inside the packaging, you'll find 2 sets of components, bringing the resistors, transistors, diodes, integrated circuits, capacitors, knobs, connection wires, LED, foot switch and jacks. Finally, you'll also find the star of the project, the circuit board. For the assembly of the kit, only simple tools are necessary: a soldering iron with a good quality tin, a zero plier for cutting the excess of the component's terminals, and as I am currently without this plier, I'll use a fret cutting plier. Finally, you will also need a traditional screwdrivers and plier for assembling the casing. If you do not have one of those items, do not worry. I'll leave here in the description of this video the link to get really good tools with super affordable price at AliExpress, together with the link for the Landtone Clone DIY kit. Now, it's time to burn some tin. First of all, always be sure that you have the correct temperature set at your soldering iron. I am generally using 420 degrees Celsius, but if you have more practice, you can adventure yourself with higher temperatures. The logic of the assembly is always to start from the lower components, which should be placed at the circuit board, and then move to the higher ones. This helps to place them properly on the circuit board. So let's start with the resistors. Landtone is so kind to provide us the equivalent value on the label of the resistors kit, so you do not need to learn how to identify it via color code. This is a positive point for the beginners. Now, you just need to identify based on its naming where it should be placed at the circuit board, matching with the numbers written on the slots of the circuit board. To guarantee that you are placing it correct, you can always refer to the manual, which has a drawing schematic in one side and a real picture on the opposite side. Do not over-apply the tin, as this can cause undesired contact between terminals of the components, and consequently short-circuit your pedal. On the other hand, guarantee that you have the proper anchoring and the correct amount of tin to cover the full contacts. A nice tip to fixate the components before soldering, it is to bend its terminals to the sides, keeping the resistors flush on the surface of the circuit board. After soldering it, you can cut the excess of the terminals with the zero plier. After soldering all the resistors, paying extreme attention to do not exchange any position or keep any terminal without proper soldering, it is time to solder the diodes. They are not so many, but you need to pay attention to the correct orientation when placing it. The diodes are black with a gray label. The side of the gray label needs to be placed on the same side of the white mark at the circuit board. After soldering it, it is time to move ahead to the germanium diodes. There are only two, the transparent ones with the red and black labels. But here comes the first foul on this kit. One of my germanium diodes came with the broken glass enclosure, which made me feel uncertain about its functionality. I measured it with the multimeter and it looked like it was still functional, but as I didn't want to lose all the work of assembling the pedal and having the risk of not working at the end, I exchanged it for one of the diodes which I had in my personal stock. Also purchased it at AliExpress for future DIY projects. Now we need to solder the integrated circuit sockets, which are the base for exchanging damaged circuits on the future without needing to unsolder it. The attention point here is to guarantee that after you have the socket soldered, the integrated circuits are correctly positioned, taking into consideration the markings on the top, which can be a circle or half circle. After that, it was time to move to the capacitors, starting with the yellow tantalum electrolyte and then moving to the polyester ones. After that, I moved to the big electrolytic ones, always paying attention to match the negative terminal on the colored side of the circuit board slot. If your capacitor will not have marked in its body any label showing the negative and positive, it's not a problem. The smaller length terminal will always be the negative one, the same as for the LED. Once it was all done, we were set to move to the other external components, missing only the LED. I took a stupid decision to do not solder it on the opposite side of the circuit board, being afraid it would have issues to be aligned with the LED fixation frame. But if you're assembling it for the first time, do not be afraid. You can remove the LED from the inside of the fixation frame and solder it, keeping the plastic base as the correct elevation to place the LED later on the case. It will work just fine. Now comes the point which will require a little bit more of attention when following the instruction guides. Let's start by soldering the 9V plug, which can be easily inserted through the fixation holes and soldered following the correct color matching for positive and negative terminals. Later, we can move to the input and output jacks. I suggest you to follow close the instructions of the manual, being sure we will not mix the neutral, positive and negative poles. For the 9V, another stupid decision. I wanted to solder it so I could test the pedal without assembling it on the case, which would work fine. But, as I took the dumb decision to do not solder the LED, it was necessary to later unsolder the 9V jack, place it on the enclosure, and again resolder it. To do not create rework to you, I suggest you to solder it only at the end, as the fixation needs to be done before the final soldering. Finally, we need to solder the terminals of the foot switch and we should be good to go. But then comes the second foul at this kit. The manual schematic for soldering the terminals is wrong. This made me solder the full foot switch and later discover that the pedal was not working. But no worries, I can show you the correct way of doing it. The first thing you need to consider is that the correct position of the foot switch should be with the terminals in line with the horizontal direction. Later, you just need to solder the terminals following the 1 to 6 schematic of this picture. Finally, after reworking the soldering of the foot switch, it was time to test our pedal, and success! It seems it works, which means we can finally fix all the parts at the enclosure and close it totally. What else could be missing? Of course, the sound check. Let's check it out. What do you think? Does it sound good to you? For those who already follow the channel a little bit longer, you probably had the opportunity to watch my Warm Audio Centaur full review and the Klon vs Klon blind test, which means that I already have a good base of comparison when it comes to Klon pedals. My opinion is, the Landtone DIY kit is super competent. It's not as compressed as the cheap Chinese clones, like the Mosky ones, and brings lots of character to the sound, just like it should be expected from a more high-ending clone pedal. Of course, I'll never know if the exchange of the germanium diode impacted somehow on the final quality of the sound, but I can certainly tell you that for 50 bucks, this pedal is super worthy. It is beautiful, sounds good, the quality is pretty good, and as additional benefit, brings the experience to start understanding how the pedal circuitry works, what can be a really interesting knowledge for those who wish to adventure themselves on mods, pedal maintenance, or even creating their own DIY pedals. Pretty cool, yeah? So, thanks AliExpress for sponsoring this video. And if you liked what you saw and heard, do not lose the opportunity to get your kit using our exclusive promo codes. The link for all products used in this video are at the description. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you like the project? And as always, if this video was helpful to you somehow, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button so YouTube will spread this video to a broader audience, and becoming a member of the channel so you can help us to have a longer life and also enjoy special perks like anticipate video releases, full DIY projects like this one without cuts, and participating on monthly gear giveaways. You can become a member clicking join below or reading the QR code at the corner of this video. I'll catch you on the next. Keep on rocking.